doing rapid revision of all important questions, quick revision of volatile facts, and high-yielding topics and most expected questions are also covered. So this is beneficial for all the students of all the universities from different states. So today's class, we will be dealing with menstrual cycle as well as meiosis, cell division. So before we start with the classes, let's look at some core features of Auricle. So here we offer you both live classes as well as recorded classes. Recorded classes, you can access them anytime, anywhere. And we also give you notes which are based on CBME-based question answers, MCQs, and there is also a fun zone of MCQs for your self-assessment. So these MCQs are from the beginner level to expert level, which are all standard multiple choice questions repeatedly asked in the exams. So you can use the code Dr. Divya 20 for the discount on subscription. There are many subscription plans. We have the basic, standard, and the mentorship program. Mentorship is a wholesome program for 12 months, and we offer you at a special rate of 50,000. So here, it includes all the services which we offer that in basic and standard. And in addition to that, we also give you one-to-one personalized guidance as well as notes. You can also book a slot for personalized counseling session using the code Dr. Divya 20. So today we'll begin with the menstrual cycle and meiosis. So the objectives of today's class is about the stages. So these are the questions which are commonly asked. So stages of menstrual cycle, explain about hormonal control of menstrual cycle, and also about the process of meiosis. And short answers, corpus luteum. So first coming to the menstrual cycle. So first is the definition of menstrual cycle. So what is the definition? It's the periodic structural change. Okay, so the periodic structural change of the endometrium of the uterus, we call it as the menstrual cycle. So this occurs during this periodic structural change occurs during the reproductive life. Okay, so this is known as menstrual or otherwise uterine cycle. So this is different from the ovarian cycle. Ovarian cycle is basically where the follicular genesis happens. Menstrual cycle is basically the change in the endometrium. So always the keywords you need to remember. So this uterine cycle, next is after the definition, the duration. So how long is the duration? So it is a 28-day cycle, okay? So normally it is in majority of the individuals, females, it is about 28-day cycle, but some, it may prolong up to 40 days. So this uterine or menstrual cycle, it has 3 phases mainly. Some books use 4, but generally, we consider 3 phases. That is the follicular phase, progestational phase, and the menstrual phase. So what are the changes which occur in these different phases we need to know? So first is the follicular or the proliferative stage here. So here what happens is, soon after the menstrual period occurs, that is after the menstruation, the next phase is this proliferative phase. So here it is characterized by the repair and subsequent growth of the endometrium following the previous menstrual cycle. So this repair, it takes about 4 days to complete, and the rest of the phase, okay, so during the rest of the phase, so usually the repair initially soon after menstruation, it is about 4 days. It takes 4 days to complete. After that, the rest of the phase, okay, so it is up to about 14 days. Okay, so if you take from the 3rd day up to 14 days, it continues. So this rest of the phase, what happens is there is growth of this endometrium to about 1 to 3 millimeters in thickness. Now these changes are mainly due to estrogen, which are derived from the maturing ovarian follicles. So the theca cells will be secreting this estrogen, which is responsible for this change. So ovulation, if you see, the ovulation will take place at the end of the follicular phase. Okay, so proliferative phase, on the average, it takes about 14 days. So 14th day, there will be ovulation, a normal 28-day cycle. So here, what we have to remember is, it is characterized by the repair and subsequent growth. That is the proliferative phase. And the repair initially takes 4 days, and the rest of the phase, that is the growth, it happens in the rest of the phase. So it is initially up to 1 to 3 millimeters in thickness it grows, and the responsible hormone is estrogen. So here what growth occurs? So one is the epithelial cells. Okay, so the lining epithelial cells of the endometrium, epithelial lining of the endometrium, as well as the tubular glands, it becomes columnar. Okay, so from cuboidal to columnar it becomes, and the uterine glands, they will increase in length. Okay, they increase in length and they remain straight. That is the next change. And the cells of the endometrial stroma, okay, the cells in the stromal cells, they are arranged in 3 layers. So we call them as stratum compactum, the superficial layer, stratum spongiosum, and the lower layer will be the stratum basal. Okay, so mainly the changes, menstrual changes will be happening in the stratum compactum and stratum spongiosum. Okay, so these are the changes which occurs in the follicular or proliferative phase. The next phase is the progestational or secretory phase. So here, this is after the ovulation. So here, basically the changes are due to the progesterone and estrogen of corpus luteum. So the corpus luteum will have the granulosa cells, okay, which are also known as luteal cells. So these luteal cells which secrete the progesterone, whereas the thecal cells will be secreting the estrogens. Okay, so this is from the corpus luteum. So the endometrium here increases in thickness. Okay, so here it was about 1 to 3 millimeters, and now it increases to about 5 to 7 millimeters in thickness. And towards the end of this progestational or the secretory phase, okay, the sudden regression of the endometrium takes place because of the diminished concentration of progesterone. Okay, so that is in the, so progesterone level decreases in the circulating blood, and which is basically because of the degeneration of corpus luteum. Okay, so that happens towards the end of the secretory phase, that is about 26 to 28 days, okay, from the first day of menstrual cycle. So the endometrium recedes, so regression, the endometrium regression, it basically precedes the menstruation. So when the endometrium regresses, menstruation occurs. So this phase is also known as the premenstrual phase. Okay, so these are the things which happens in the secretory phase. So secretory phase is mainly because of progesterone and small amount of estrogens. The endometrium will increase in thickness, and towards the end of the phase, because of the degeneration of the corpus luteum, there is withdrawal of progesterone, and because of that, there is sudden regression of the endometrium. Okay, and then it is shed. So here the growth includes increased amount of tissue fluid in the stroma. Okay, so there is increased amount of the tissue fluid in the stroma. So that is one change. Next is the secretions. Okay, so there is accumulation of secretion within the glands. So that the glands, so the uterine glands, they become dilated and convoluted. And that gives the appearance of sawtooth. Okay, so in histology, we can make out, so the sawtooth appearance of these glands. So increase in the size of the stromal cells is mainly because of the accumulation of glycogen and lipid droplets in the cytoplasm, and that is known as decidual reaction. So this decidual reaction is more pronounced in pregnancy. Then there is increased tortuosity of the spiral arteries. So spiral arteries become increasingly tortuous. Okay, so these are the changes which occurs in the secretory phase. You can see here. So this is, here it was straight, here it is tortuous. So next is the menstrual phase. So the menstrual phase, it lasts for about 3 to 5 days. So it is characterized by the shedding of the stratum compactum and stratum spongiosum of the endometrium, okay, which we call it as the deciduana. So along with this, so these two layers are shed along with the small amount of blood. So average amount of blood loss is about 50 to 60 ml. Okay, so that is normal. More than that, we call it as metrorrhagia. Okay, or menorrhagia, metrorrhagia. So the metrorrhagia is painful menstruation. Menorrhagia is excessive menstruation. So the blood here, when the menstrual blood usually doesn't clot. And this is because of the presence of proteolytic enzymes. These proteolytic enzymes prevents the coagulation. So that is why the menstrual blood usually doesn't clot. So why this menstruation occurs? It is because of the sudden withdrawal of the progesterone. Okay, so usually in an ovulatory cycle, it is because of the withdrawal of progesterone, whereas in an anovulatory cycle, where the ovulation doesn't occur, usually in the initial pubertal age, okay, and sometimes even in adults also, sometimes the ovulation will not occur. So there is no formation of the corpus luteum, okay, so when there is no ovulation. So there the bleeding is because of estrogen withdrawal. Okay, so when we write about the menstrual cycle, okay, so we need to write about under these headings, we need to explain. Okay, so first you will talk about the, okay, so what is the definition? Definition of, okay, so it is the cyclical changes, which we see it in the cyclical changes, which we see where in the endometrium. Okay, that is in the endometrium of the uterus in the reproductive life. So this is what you will write. Then duration, normally it is about 28-day cycle. Okay, the entire menstrual cycle we are talking about. Phases, mainly it has three: the follicular phase, okay, or the proliferative phase. Then there is the secretory phase, and then there is the menstrual phase. So we need to know the differences basically in the proliferative phase, okay, proliferative and the secretory phase. So what are the changes here? So one is the endometrium increases in thickness. So it is about, thickness is about 1 to 3 millimeters. Here it increases to about 5 to 7 millimeters. Then the uterine glands, they are, they increase in length. Okay, so they increase in length and they are straight. Okay, so they are straight, whereas here they are dilated and tortuous. Okay, tortuous. Then the stromal cells will increase. Okay, so there is 3 layers. So we have 3 layers there, which we call it, okay, the stratum compactum, stratum spongiosum, and the stratum basal. So 3 layers we get. Here also the stromal cells, they get filled with tissue fluid. Okay, so tissue fluid is present there, and they increase in size. Okay, size they increase because of the accumulation of glycogen and lipid droplets. Then the arteries, blood vessels, okay, they become dilated here. Okay, here the glands, they give a sawtooth appearance. Here the blood vessels are tortuous. Okay, so those differences we need to know. So that is how you will write the answer for the menstrual cycle. Next, the hormonal control of menstruation. Okay, so during this entire menstrual cycle, there are hormones which are regulated by 3 main organs, endocrine organs. That is the hypothalamus, the adenohypophysis, and the ovary. So ovary also acts like an endocrine, that is basically the corpus luteum. Okay, so here what happens is, if you see how is the control is, so the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus secretes the gonadotropin releasing hormone. Okay, this gonadotropin releasing hormone, it acts on adenohypophysis. Okay, it acts on adenohypophysis, and the adenohypophysis, that is the anterior pituitary, causes the release of FSH and LH. Okay, so initially there is release of FSH. So FSH causes the, that is FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. So because of the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone, so this is happening in the follicular phase. So that is why we call it as the follicular phase. So here there is maturation of the follicles. Okay. So follicular phase is in regard to the ovary where the follicles are maturing. And here it is basically the proliferative phase in the endometrium. So this maturation of follicles will happen. So the more follicles from primary would have become secondary, secondary becomes Graafian follicle. Okay. So in the Graafian follicle, what happens is the granulosa cells, okay, they start secreting estrogen. Okay, the granulosa cells of the Graafian follicle, they secrete estrogen. So estrogen leads to the increased proliferation of the endometrium. So this is what is happening in the follicular phase. So because of the increased proliferation, so by the 14th day, what happens is, so if you see here, the LH surge happens. Okay, so here see maximum FSH is secreted here by 14th day, and at that time only the LH surge will happen. So LH surge is luteinizing hormone. So luteinizing hormone, what happens? Causes ovulation. Okay, so the secondary oocyte is released, completes the that is the first meiotic division and enters the second meiotic division, right? And then it will be released during the ovulation. So once the ovulation starts, what happens is the lutein cells of the corpus luteum. Okay, so corpus luteum, that is the granulosa lutein cells, these will secrete progesterone. Okay, and it enters into the secretory phase. So this becomes so this progesterone causes increased again, it increases in thickness. That is, the endometrium will increase in thickness, right? Okay. Now, okay, by this period, okay, if there is no, so ovulation has occurred, progesterone is secreted, okay, and it is into the secretory phase. So it is preparing the bed to receive the fertilized ovum, okay, so fertilized ovum, to release, that is fertilized ovum is basically the formation of the zygote, and the zygote, for the implantation, it prepares itself. But in case there is no fertilization, so absence of fertilization, what happens is these granulosa cells, they will secrete this thing, what is that? Inhibin. Okay, they secrete the inhibin hormone, and this inhibin will inhibit the adenohypophysis, that is the anterior pituitary. So when anterior pituitary, it will stimulate, what happens here? The FSH is decreased, all the hormone levels are decreased. So there is inhibition of gonadotropin releasing hormone. Okay, so there is negative feedback there. So inhibition of gonadotropin hormone. So because of the inhibition of the gonadotropin hormone, there is regression of the corpus luteum. Okay, so the corpus luteum will regress, and because of the regression of the corpus luteum, what happens? There is decreased progesterone. So because of that, when the progesterone decreases, there is ischemic necrosis of the endometrium, and then menstruation occurs because of the withdrawal. So that is the hormonal control of menstruation. Okay, so you need to know which are the organs. Okay, so which are the organs? So basically the endocrine organs which will control the menstruation. So one is the hypothalamus, and then we have the anterior pituitary or adenohypophysis, and third is the ovary. Okay, so which are the hormones secreted by that? Hypothalamus will secrete GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. From anterior pituitary, we have FSH and LH. Okay, and ovary, we will have progesterone and estrogens. Progesterone and estrogen is secreted. Okay, so how is the mechanism now? So gonadotropin, hypothalamus, it secretes the gonadotropin releasing hormone, which will act on the anterior pituitary. Okay, so anterior pituitary will release both FSH, LH. Okay, so initially the levels are lower. So when it is, so FSH and LH. Okay, so first FSH will cause the follicles to grow, maturation of the follicles, FSH. Okay, so FSH causes maturation. So finally, Graafian follicle is formed. So Graafian follicle, the cells of the Graafian follicle, okay, they will secrete estrogen, and estrogen will cause the increased proliferation. So by 14th day, the LH surge occurs here. LH surge will occur, okay, and that leads to ovulation. So once ovulation occurs, there is formation of corpus luteum, and corpus luteal cells will secrete what? Progesterone. Okay, so they will secrete the progesterone. So progesterone will cause increased proliferation again. Okay, so in case fertilization doesn't occur, if there is no fertilization, okay, so what will happen? There is decreased withdrawal. The corpus luteum will regress. Okay, so there is regression, decreased progesterone, and inhibition of GnRH. Okay, so that will lead to menstruation. So that is how the hormonal control is there. Okay, so that is why we do all these tests also, like, to see whether ovulation and all. We try to see the hormonal levels, FSH and LH levels, to see whether ovulation is occurring, whether the follicles are developing. Okay, so we need to see. That is why the understanding of the hormones secreted and what are the actions is important. Next is corpus luteum, which is commonly asked short essay question, short answer question. So this is it looks yellow, right? So yellow hormone secreting mass of cells. Okay, yellowish hormone secretes a mass of cells which looks yellowish, and they secrete the hormone. So what it is formed by? It is formed after, how it is formed? After ovulation, when the walls of the follicle collapses and is converted. So walls of the, so after the ovulation, see, once the ovum is released, yes. Okay, so the ovum is it's released. That is the secondary oocyte is released. So this is the early corpus luteum here. So the walls of this follicular cells, no, this is the follicle, it will collapse and it forms a mass of cells. So the main bulk of this corpus luteum is formed by the granulosa cells, granulosa lutein cells. So cells of this granulosa, they enlarge and proliferate by mitosis, and they contain, why they appear yellow is because of this carotenoid pigment which is present within that. Okay, and they form long column of epithelial cells. And those cells, we call them as the granulosa lutein cells. Okay, so this stratum granulosum of this Graafian follicle, no, they will enlarge, okay, by mitosis, and they get filled with this yellowish carotenoid pigment in the cytoplasm and form long column of epithelial cells known as granulosa lutein cells. So the formation of the corpus luteum is basically by the secretion of LH. Okay, that is the luteinizing hormone of anterior pituitary. So the granulosa lutein cells, so here they secrete which one? The progesterone and small amount of estrogen, which is mainly secreted by these thecal cells which are present there. The effect of this progesterone, this is theca internal cells, okay? So this progesterone, what happens, why this progesterone is secreted now and what it will cause? It will stimulate the secretory phase of the endometrium, okay? So ovulation, LH surge, and there is formation of corpus luteum. So here it stimulates the secretory phase. So it increases the tone, lessens the contraction of the uterine muscles. Okay, tone is increased and contraction is decreased. So why that is? Why it does that? To prevent the expulsion of the developing embryo from the uterus. So sometimes no spontaneous abortion occurs mainly because of these low progesterone levels. So in those cases, the external source of, that is, we give injections, the progesterone injections are given in early pregnancy. So it also depresses the secretion of FSH. Now, why should it decrease the secretion of FSH from the anterior pituitary? Because the formation, so that during the formation of corpus luteum, the maturation of the follicle is suppressed. Okay, so the other follicles shouldn't be maturing there, right? So only one, it is a mono-ovulatory cycle in humans. So only one follicle is formed. Okay, and it prevents suppresses the secretion of FSH. So this corpus luteum, the fate of the corpus luteum. So we see three types of corpus luteum, three stages. One is the corpus luteum of menstruation. Other one is corpus albicans. And the third is the corpus luteum of pregnancy. Okay, so here what happens? Corpus luteum of menstruation. So in the absence of pregnancy. Okay, so if the pregnancy doesn't occur, okay, so that there is no fertilization of the secondary oocyte, and so in that case, what happens is this corpus luteum remains for about 14 days. Okay. After that, and reaches a diameter of about 1 centimeter. Then it regresses because there is withdrawal, no? The progesterone is withdrawn. And so there is degeneration of these luteal cells. So this stage, we call it as the corpus albicans. Corpus albicans, what happens is, it is nothing but the degenerated fibrotic nodule. So it is a degenerated fibrotic nodule, which is formed because of the regression of the corpus luteum. Third is, we can see in case pregnancy occurs, then we call it as the corpus luteum of pregnancy. So here what happens is, now how this is maintained is the trophoblast cells, of which one, the blastocyst, okay, they secrete the chorionic gonadotropin hormone, which stimulates the corpus luteum to grow. Okay, so here the growth of the corpus luteum is maintained by which one? The trophoblast cells of the developing embryo, that is the blastocyst, no, from there. So the chorionic gonadotropin hormone. Okay, that is why in pregnancy, we look for that is what gives the urine pregnancy test positive. That is the human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. So this stimulates the corpus luteum to grow. Okay, and so this is maintained till the 4th month. So it continues to grow and proliferate, and it continues to secrete the progesterone up to the end of 4th month. Okay, so after which it will regress. Okay, so what is corpus luteum? So how will you write the answer? So in the definition, what is this corpus luteum? Okay, so it is yellowish hormone secreting cell mass. Okay, so it is yellowish hormone secreting cell mass. Okay, secreting cell mass. Always give the heading so that you know what to write under that. Formation is, how does it form? By LH surge. Okay, so when the luteinizing hormone is secreted, okay, by the anterior pituitary, that is responsible for the formation of the corpus luteum, because when the LH surge happens, the ovulation happens, and then we have the formation of corpus luteum. So you have to write the characteristic features of that. Okay, so what it has, that yellow carotenoid pigment, okay, and what hormones it secretes. So basically, what are the hormones it secretes? It secretes progesterone mainly, and the progesterone and estrogen. So fate, we have three. One is, if pregnancy doesn't occur, it forms corpus luteum of menstruation, which then forms the corpus albicans. Okay, so pregnancy, if it doesn't happen, it results in corpus luteum. If it happens positive, it results in corpus luteum of pregnancy. So this stays only for about it stays for about 14 days. After the ovulation, for about 14 days, it will be present. Okay, after which it results in formation of corpus albicans. This will remain up to 4th month. Okay, and this is maintained by which hormone? The chorionic gonadotropin hormone. Okay, gonadotropin maintains the corpus luteum, and this one is secreted by the trophoblast cells. Okay, so these are the things which you need to know. Next, coming to the cell division, meiosis. Okay, so what do we mean by the meiosis? So meiosis, it is type of cell division, okay, which takes place only in the germ layers. Okay, it takes place only in the germ layers. And why does it take place in the germ layers? To produce the gametes, whether it may be male or female gametes. Okay, so meiosis happens. So this consists of two stages now. One is meiosis 1 or reductional division. So the number of daughter cells here, it is reduced to half of it. Okay, and meiosis 2, it is similar to mitosis. Okay, it is similar to mitosis. Mitosis, what happens? The cell just divides. Okay, but here the duplication of DNA, unlike the mitosis, the duplication of DNA doesn't happen. Okay. So now the stages of meiosis. Stages in meiosis 1, it consists of 4 stages: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Okay, but prophase of the meiosis 1 is very long and complicated and consists of 5 stages. That is leptotene, zygotene, pachytene, diplotene, and diakinesis. Okay, so these are the different stages which we see it in the prophase. So it is very prolonged. So what happens in this each stage? So first is the leptotene stage. Okay, so leptotene stage, here the chromosomes, they appear like as in how in mitosis it looks like thin slender threads, same way it appears. Okay, so each of the chromosome here consists of 2 chromatids, okay, which are joined at the centromere. But they are individually, they are not visible at this stage. The next stage is the zygotene stage. Okay, so zygotene stage, what happens? The lengthwise pairing happens. Okay, the pairing of homologous chromosomes happens. So it results in the formation of bivalent. Okay, so this is the bivalent stage here. So the synaptic pairing happens here. So what happens here is one of the 2 homologous chromosomes. So here the pairing is happening. Pairing of homologous chromosome is happening, right? So here one of the 2, okay, one of the 2 homologous chromosome is like one is from the paternal side, the paternal chromosome. Another one is the maternal chromosome, okay. So this event is called as synapsis, and each synaptic pair is called as bivalent. So this is the bivalent. Next is the third thing is the pachytene. Okay, so pachytene is also a very long and even sometimes it extends for years. So this is characterized by the formation of 4 chromatids here. Okay, so here the chromatids of each of these chromosomes, what happens is it becomes visibly visible. That is basically separately we can see it. So each bivalent chromosome appears to have 4 chromosomes now. Okay, so initially it is looking like 1 and 2 bivalent. Now it is looking like tetrahedron. Okay, so these 4 chromatids appear, and this we call it as the tetrahedron. So each of these chromatid pair, it is united by a kinetochore. Okay, it is united by a kinetochore, and here this we call it as the central. This one and this one we call it as the central, and these we call it as the peripheral. Okay, so each of that will have 2 central and 2 peripheral. So the 2 central chromatids, okay, so one belonging to each, okay, one belonging to each of the chromosome, coil over each other. Like here you can see it goes, okay. So coil over each other so that they cross at a number of points. Okay, so they will coil over each other, and because of that crossing occurs. Okay, so this will go into the next stage, diplotene stage. So crossing over of the 2 central chromatids happens, and that is known as the chiasma. Okay, that cross configuration, we call it as the chiasmata. So this is the formation of chiasmata there. And in the diplotene stage, by this time, the paired homolog tetrahed chromatids, no, they start to separate. So the central chromatids, what happens is at this point they break. Okay, wherever they are crossing over, they break there and they unite to the opposite. This gets attached to here and this one gets attached to the other thing. Okay, so here you can see it is attached separately. Okay, so that is the stage. So because of this, what happens? There is exchange of the genetic material between the two chromatids. Then comes the diakinesis state here. So here the chromosomes become more contracted and migrate towards the cell membrane. Okay, so they migrate towards the cell membrane after that genetic exchange. So at the end of this prophase stage, what happens is this nuclear membrane here. This is the nuclear membrane of this cell. It disappears. Okay. Then is the metaphase stage. So here in the metaphase, the homologous pair of chromosomes, they are arranged on the equatorial plane of the spindle. Okay. So they are, so one entire migrates to the, so basically they are arranged in the equatorial plane in the metaphase, sorry, here in the metaphase stage, they are arranged in the equatorial plane here. And in the anaphase stage, what happens? Each of these chromosome, they migrate towards the opposite pole without any separation. Okay. So unlike the mitosis here, the chromosomes, they move very randomly. So the shorter chromosomes move faster than the longer ones. Then is the telophase stage. So telophase stage, two daughter cells containing, okay, here in anaphase, the cytokinesis occurs, and here you can see formation of the two daughter cells containing half the number of chromosomes. Okay, so this will be after the second meiotic division. So second meiotic division, we have the formation of 4. Right. So this is the same thing. So significance of meiosis. So what is the significance of meiosis? There is maintenance of normal chromosome number. Okay, so the normal chromosome number is maintained. How it is maintained now? So during the meiosis, what happens? The chromosome number is reduced to half, isn't it? Because of the formation of two daughter cells, the chromosome number is half. Okay, so it forms haploid. So each germ cell will have haploid number of chromosomes. So when the two germ cells unite, one male and one female unite to form the zygote, two haploid cells join to form a diploid. Okay, and the chromosome number is restored. Then for sexual reproduction, it is essential. Okay, and genetic variation occurs. Genetic variation here, what happens? Because of the random assortment of paternal, okay, randomly they are assorted, right? The paternal and maternal chromosomes, and there is exchange of the genetic material. They cross over, okay, the coiling happens, they cross over and all those things. So because of that, the daughter cells have a new genetic configuration. It is mixed up. It is not like only two, they separated and one joined. They have crossed over, they are mixed up. The genes have been mixed up in that. So this causes what? Individual variation in the species. Okay, so even if they are of the same parents, the siblings, they differ, isn't it? Each one differs in their features of appearance as well as their nature, their characteristics, behavior, everything change behavior. Of course, it is developed later on, but basically the main features and their characteristic things, they change. One is not the same as the other. Okay, so this is basically important for evolution. Okay, so in meiosis, you will write what is meiosis. So basically, it's a type of cell division occurring only in gametes, okay, the germ cells. So it happens. What are the characteristic features? What are the stages there? Okay, so characteristic features here, it is a reductional division, and in the meiosis too, there is no duplication of the DNA. Okay, so and in stages, we have 4 stages and prophases. In meiosis, one is longer. Okay, longer, having 5 stages there. So you have to write about that. And significance, as I mentioned, you have to write about that sexual reproduction, genetic variation, and also essential for the maintenance of the number of chromosomes. Okay. So thank you for watching Auricle. For more social content, for the more content, you can see our social media handles. You can follow them. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Telegram. We are on there. Okay, and if you haven't yet downloaded the app now, you can get it on Google Play and App Store. Okay, so you can start the journey with Auricle and improve your scores. So until then, next time. Thank you.